Good. We're all here again for week 6, our last formal week of our meditation class. I'm so pleased that we can all gather again. I had a couple of things I learned this past week that I wanted to share with you before we do our opening sit, because I thought they were kind of good, simple things that were helpful in meditation. One thing that I notice sometimes is, there's no test today, by the way. But I will want you to do some writing, so I brought some pencils along too. You can certainly take notes. But one thing is that I often, and this is, Brenda, this is my journal. I don't write in here all the time, but if someday I have an interesting thought or something I've read is interesting, I'll write it in here. So since I've been doing this the last 4 years, this is just my second one. I don't write a lot, but I find that helpful. One thing I notice a lot is that it's so hard, of course, to keep my attention on every breath. And I want to do good. I've been doing this a long time. I should be able to stay on it. And so sometimes it can feel exhausting, constricting, because I'm trying so hard to keep my attention on each breath and then I don't. And so I get a little frustrated. So many thoughts and then these whole streams of thought that last 5 or 6 breaths. And so one thing I've heard is that it can be helpful to think of mindfulness as resting in awareness. So not trying so hard, it's really resting. And you can think of it as gathering the energy of all these scattered thoughts into a central place of peace. And from there, then, we can see more clearly and be prepared for what comes next. So just resting in awareness. A lot of times, an itch bothers me. And how do I deal with an itch or other kinds of uncomfortable, slightly uncomfortable physical sensations? And you can make that the object of your attention and just focus in on that instead of the breath. But I've found, especially for an itch, which is minor, that I can just kind of let it go into the background of my awareness. Don't try to forget about it. Don't try to cling to it. But just stay on the breath. But just notice, there's that itch. And just stay with the breath. And it doesn't seem to bother me as much that way, and it goes away. Another thing I heard on my retreat that I thought was valuable, Joseph Goldstein suggested that it's good to note that transition moment from being lost in a thought, coming back and rejoining the breath. Because it kind of gives you a bit of what's available there. It kind of highlight that for you. And I've started to say to myself, I'm back. And remember that feeling of coming out of a train of thought and coming back to the breath, kind of a feeling of freedom. So some things I thought are helpful for me and maybe helpful for you in your meditation. And today, our last class, we're going to focus, as the last chapter in the book did, on continuing our practice and what we can do from here on. So I hope you all will be able to continue your practice in ways, and I have some ideas for that. So we'll start off with a sit. I won't give you too much guidance today, probably. So begin by taking a dignified position Try to remain firmly planted with our feet, our seat, our hands, our back straight, our eyes closed or gently gazing down forward. And begin by feeling the body in this position. If there are any points of tension, let them release. And then bring our attention to the breath, the physical sensation of each in and out breath. It may be helpful to say to ourselves gently in, out, or rising, falling, just gently to keep our attention on the breath. When a sensation or a thought takes our attention away from the breath, we note that and perhaps give it a brief name. Thinking, fearing, feeling, and then come back with our attention on the breath, each breath one at a time. If a thought or sensation just really grabs us or keeps coming back, we may want to just pay attention to that and make that our focus for several breaths. Just notice, what is that thinking? Not try to solve it, but just experience it. What does it feel like? Can we feel it somewhere in the body? Then we can begin to understand it, and then, in its time, let it go and come back to the breath. Remember that thoughts and emotions generally have an associated feeling tone. We experience them as either pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. And with that, there's an associated little pull inside of us to either hold on to it, push it away, or kind of dull out. And just noticing that helps us understand and be able to deal with it mindfully. Remember that mindfulness is just becoming aware of what's happening in the present moment with our senses and our mind, non-judgmentally, with kindness to ourselves. So let's go around the circle. I'd like this week to hear either about what kind of problems or questions you might have come up in your practice, or perhaps some special experiences or insights or something you've noticed in your practice. Who would like to start?
I think with mine, I do the meditation at night. I feel it rewarding at that time. I think right now we need meditation more than ever because of everything that's going on in our life. We have a pandemic. We have an election that is so makes everybody outraged. I feel we have police officers not being respected. We have blacks. There's so much that everybody right now feels inside of them with everything that's going on, that the calmness of the meditation helps me get through that day. I might see something on TV, rioting or looting, and it just drives me nuts. And I get raged. I get raged if I see somebody not going into like Quick Trip, not wearing a mask. I really feel that my rage inside of me, or the police officers, the Black lives, everything that has happened in the last 7, 8 months, all comes down and it all triggers and settles inside of me. The only way I can get it out is by meditating or letting go with Michael or something, but the meditation just relieves everything that I think this whole world is going through right now. That's all I have to say. We have a lot to work on. A lot.
I've been struggling with all those things as well as Al had some minor surgery and it didn't work, and so now he's got to go back and have some more done, and it's like, I don't need this. So I'm just struggling with, and the meditation I think helps, but I'm really struggling with keeping focused on the breath because of everything that's going on. I'll sit there and I'll make 2 or 3 breaths and then I'll be off to the election. It'll be off to the pandemic, but it'll be off to Al. So sometimes I just get so frustrated. Then I just do the body scan, because if I do the body scan, that stuff doesn't come into my brain as I'm doing the body scan. And I've been doing the loving kindness a lot. I've been doing that every day. So that's been helping.
Loving kindness is one of my favorites because I have 3 children and they each have a child. And so I just really fills my heart when those things are happening. To go to that loving kindness pod place and then loving kindness workplace and then the loving kindness, and then so where I've experienced it the most currently is I drive to and from work. I just really, the sky, the clouds, the fields, I just am really floating through space, enjoying the environment. And you mentioned, don't close your eyes. So it's not that I'm meditating, but I'm mindfully driving through this beautiful environment. So I'm enjoying that. But I also have, you said, I'm back is your little thing. Mm-hmm. Well, I almost burst out laughing because my struggle with what you were talking about is there's that song that you might know from your kids. I love to go wandering my backpack along the mountain track. And as I go, I love to sing my backpack on my back, Valerie. And so I sing, and I'm like, oh, I'm wandering again. And that's like my little clue of wandering. And I'm laughing, I'm happy with my wandering. And then I come back and then I fight laughter. I don't fight it because I love laughter. But I'm like, okay, I'm back. So that was my wandering down the hall. I think it's my finding a way to be defiantly happy in spite of all that's going on. Has been my touch point, my favorite perk since we started.
I could just share something with you. Our regular yoga teacher had an accident and she couldn't come to the class this week. She had sent the notice to our old email address, so we didn't get it. So we drove into town and we were the only ones there. So normally I would get kind of upset, wasting the trip, but it worked out. We've got a series of YouTubes that we're teaching the class, so we did that at home instead. And the YouTube was short, so we went from our Shavasana right into the meditation. It worked out great.
Brenda?
I think a lot of little things catching to not let get to be letting it have so much of my time in my thoughts. So going back to the breathing and like, okay, I go. And then going back into the breathing. The loving kindness, has a lot to do with what we did with that too. So somebody's kind of, if it's people that keep coming into my thoughts, I can't control them, so why do I want to spend my time and energy on it? And more like letting go of some of those things. I still do not have an established time of day to do it regularly because the schedule can be so much for me. So I can't say it's always in the morning or it's always at night. Sometimes I'm okay with, okay, I'm home this morning, I can do it now, and I can enjoy it. Other times it's like, okay, I need to do it in the car right now, driving home. So I'm being okay for the times that I am being able to realize I can do this and still work towards that time of what is going to be the best time each day. So I can't say 10 o'clock every day I'm doing it, or I can't say 9 o'clock every day. So it's kind of like all over. And I know you wanted us to establish a certain time of day, and that part's not working.
Some people are like that. And I'm so happy that you're all finding ways to continue your meditation and make it relevant to all the stuff that's happening in your lives. I think of those 4 words that we had, they were the unlimited qualities or something. I forget what they're called now, but very helpful in these times, and you're cultivating those. Loving kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity. And equanimity is tough, but that's what we need. What can we do about the election? We voted, and we have to let it go and just be with what is, right? It's not an emotion, it's a practice, it's something we work at. So.
Was it in this chapter you read where it really starts with dealing with a lot of that by looking at yourself and taking care of that part with yourself? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. We voted. We have the beautiful right to vote. Mm-hmm. But it's not for us to say because we voted that way. It has to be this way. We just have to, okay, we do that part now. Just,
And we can begin to heal the world by healing ourselves.
And be okay with if somebody voted different from what you voted. That's okay. We can get along. If everybody will start with the mindset of, okay, let's get along. Let's respect that and get along.
Just what I was actually saying is just everything, do you feel everything just kind of coming at you?
Oh, yeah, there's
yeah, with everything that's going on, not just the election, but the pandemic, everything. Just, it gets to me It really, really does. Not everybody, some people can say, oh, let it go. I can't. It sticks with me.
I think most people won't wanna admit that it gets.
Exactly.
They wanna
But
be
I'll be
strong.
the first one to admit that this has really taken a
And yes,
toll
I
on
do
me,
have, I have
everything.
those moments and it's like,
Yeah.
I have, let me see, and maybe weepy days,
Yeah.
you know, like
That's
weepy
okay.
mopey days.
That's the way I feel. I feel with Christmas coming up, I mean, can't imagine not going to church on Christmas Eve, and it's stressful. That's another stress, you know?
Change is hard, but it can be, it's gonna push us to find another way of having
Hmm.
that joy that we have on a Christmas Eve. May not be the way we've always had it, but we can still find joy
Hmm.
and try something different. I think saying it's a time of now to try something different. That's why I had time for this meditation now, and I'm so glad I did sign up. And the 4 weeks of yoga twice a week, and find
Hmm.
different things to do. Stopped at the library, signed up for 2 book clubs. I'm reading more books, so just I think sometimes you have to get out of that wallowing and let your mind go like, oh God, oh yeah, I should try this.
Hmm.
Because the time is now, because how many of us have, someday I'm going to do this. Someday I'm going to go and do that. Someday I'm going to make sure I get this in. And then someday can be now.
Hmm.
So,
Before the pandemic, I maybe talked to my brother once or twice a year, the birthday or Christmas, but now we get together weekly on the Zoom meeting, so it's kind of nice just to stay in touch.
I think sometimes we got to look for the positives that are there now in what seems to be so good. To
Oh,
look for
yes,
them.
definitely.
And they're there. There's positives that are there.
Things that we took for granted, we don't have anymore. I think and the unknown for me is the unknown. Like the holidays are coming up. What is Thanksgiving going to be like? I mean, Christmas, what's that going to be like? I always think of that, and I shouldn't. I should probably just let it just go as it comes. But I'm always worrying about how is it going to be, and I think that's what the meditation can calm me down more so than anything
It'll
else.
be okay.
Well, I have a lot of handouts today that are pieces of advice, or I think that may be helpful in helping us continue our practice. Let's see, where should we start? There, I kind of went through my different handouts and I said, oh, I forgot to hand out this one or something. Now this is one. It's about effective listening. And Jan is pleased that we're not doing this practice with meditative listening this year, I believe, because we can't because of social distancing. But you might try this at home. What we did was we sat next to each other, um, chair next to each other, one person facing away from each other, so we couldn't see each other. And one person would tell a little story, and we worked on. Do you have an extra one for me, Rebecca? And we noticed when we're doing certain things that maybe are taking our attention away from just listening. So if you go back down to the part where it says impediments to listening, some of the things you might notice if you're going to try this at home, say with your significant other or a friend, try to notice if they're talking to you and maybe say, okay, I just want to do this little mindful listening thing with you. Would you just talk and I'm going to try to listen and see when I'm doing these things. And these are things we generally do. Number one, we judge what the other person is saying. Number two, we create ideas of how to fix the issue the person is presenting or how to fix the person being listened to. Reflect on how the issues being presented are similar to the issues you are experiencing in your own life, thinking about the past or future. And mostly, for me, number 5, conceiving of how you will respond to what the person is communicating. And it's not that these things are wrong, but if we can try to notice when we're doing them, they're actually taking our attention away from really listening. And you might notice, oh, I missed what they just said because I was thinking about what I'm going to say back to them. So mindfulness has so many practical applications. I think in business, this is probably one that they work on because being able to listen effectively is so important to so many relationships. So we won't do that practice here today, Jan, but we can do it at home. That was not one of her favorites. That's you. We all have our favorites. Oh, this is a good one. The 3-minute breathing space. Forgive me if I already gave you this. And it's just a little kind of a summary of basic mindfulness instructions, but it's kind of giving it an application when you're in a stressful situation and you can just say, I'm going to give myself 3 minutes, okay? Which can be wonderfully freeing and allow us to respond effectively. Um, and as you can see, step one is becoming aware, and it's basically it's setting down into a brief meditation, okay? Noticing your thoughts, feelings, and body sensations. Number 2, gathering, kind of notice your breath. And number 3, expand your field of awareness to the body as a whole. So it's just a basic what we are doing, but it's just a little kind of a 3-minute meditation that can be very helpful. See if that's useful to you. And you might even want to schedule this into your day. You know, if you are doing a 10 or 20-minute formal meditation practice, and you're working or your other things, if you can just schedule a 3-minute thing like this in the middle of the day, might give you some energy for the afternoon. And this one is also kind of a summary of things we've talked about. It talks about what mindfulness is and the formal and informal practice. So the formal practice is the sitting, concentrating on the breath that we've been talking about. And the informal practice is bringing that state of mindfulness into whatever you're doing. And three more. Now this is kind of an expanded version of the last one. It talks about bringing the practice into daily life. you. So let me just read through this a little bit. Bringing practice into daily life with an attitude of gratitude, curiosity, compassion, and courage. Experience the sensations of breathing. So that's something we can do anytime, right? Just take a moment to feel the breath. And number 2, notice the sensations in the body as they arise. What does it really feel like? Number 3, observe and recognize emotions and moods as they arise. So we notice these in our formal practice, but we can also then, a side effect is we'll become more aware of them just as we go through our day. Oh, I'm scared right now. That's fear. Oh, just knowing it and naming it kind of helps us be freed from it a bit. Or if it's a positive one, acceptance. Oh, I'm just fine right now. Just noticing that kind of highlights it. And then we let it go. And the next one, where and how is this emotion or mood experienced in the body? Where do we feel it? That really helps us hone in on it. Where in the body? How big is it? What's the texture of the sensation? And then notice the thoughts surrounding the event. Can I identify the thought patterns without getting completely absorbed in the content? What do I feel in the body when I have a particular, perhaps a repetitive thought? So sometimes the emotion engenders a thought, sometimes a thought engenders an emotion. I think this is good. Am I reacting or responding to the situation? So reacting means it's not mindful. We're just on automatic pilot. It's our habits that have been built up in ourselves. Or if we're mindful and we know what's going on, then we can be aware and recognize and respond appropriately. And last, can I rest with things as they are? I know it's kind of repetitive, but it's good to hear it in different ways. So see if this is helpful for you. The last one is just kind of a list of some ideas of how we each can continue and try to expand our practice. I can't emphasize enough that continuing it from this day on, to continue to do it in your own way as well as you can, continues to build up all these virtues that we're talking about. So these are some practical ways to do it. So number 1, set a daily time and place. Maybe it's not always the same time, but if a certain time is best, and if you have a certain place, that all kind of puts you in the mood, if you just have that. Number 2, choose a practice. So we've studied a lot of different kinds of meditation. The sitting, which is the core, which you can do it standing. We did walking meditation, a little yoga, the body scan many people like, loving kindness meditation. So maybe pick 1 or 2 that really are your go-to practices that work for you. And build a time in your day, every day, to do some of that. Number 3 should be set a timer. So if it's possible for your formal practice, try to say, I'm going to do this 15 minutes every day or 20 minutes. I think 20 is a good goal, but if you can only do 5, fine. But if you can get a timer, any kind of a kitchen timer, or you can get an app on your phone, different kinds of meditation timers, set it, and then You don't have to worry about the time. You just sit there until the timer goes off. Just stay with it. Number 4, reading can be helpful. So I've given you some lists of books, and there's so many others. Many people find it helpful to just do a brief motivational reading before I do my sit, to just kind of give me some focus. There's so much to learn. Number 5, keep a journal. Many people find that particularly helpful. And it kind of gives you, it helps you remember what you've experienced and what you've learned. You can go back to it. It also kind of solidifies it, I think, in your memory, in your mind. And I know some people, just journaling itself is a meditation practice. Number 6, attend a regular group meditation. So that's what we're doing here. And it's really valuable to have, like anything, to have a commitment not only to yourself, but to a group. So if 2 or 3 or 5 of you wanted to continue this, we could do it if you find it helpful. I find it helpful if you say, okay, every Wednesday at 3 o'clock, we're going to spend 45 minutes together meditating, and we can have little lessons, or if you find that helpful, it can be very helpful. Number 7, attend a class or a retreat. So we are so fortunate that we've been able to have an in-person class during COVID in this setting. There aren't too many other opportunities for it, but we've heard some with Tai Chi and yoga in the area. And while there aren't any in-person retreats that I know of, there are a lot of opportunities for virtual retreats. So many of them are free. You can hear speakers and meditate together, which is a lot different, but still very rewarding. But if someday, if you are really interested and keep up with this, attending a 1, 3, or 7-day retreat or more that's just devoted to meditation is life-changing. Number 8, when you're brushing your teeth, just brush your teeth. Just mindfulness with what you're doing. Just pay attention. So if you can pick 1 or 2 activities during the day, when you do them, and just pay attention. Say if you're washing dishes, notice the temperature of the water, the suds, the light, the texture of the dishes, how you move your hands to place them, all those little things. And then when you notice that your mind is wandering to plans or something, you say, oh, thinking, and you just come back to washing the dishes. That's a wonderful meditation right there. Number 9, mindful eating. So that's another opportunity we have every day. Instead of rushing through a meal, especially if you're by yourself, slow down a bit and kind of pay attention to each movement, each taste, each smell, the color of the dishes. Slowing down is a big part of it. Number 10, when waiting, do a brief meditation. So Sharon talks about this. There are so many times in our lives when we're waiting. We're waiting in line, either virtually or in person. And that instead of being frustrated with, think of it as an opportunity to meditate. You can take a few breaths or do some loving kindness meditation. So if you have little clues to say, oh, I can be mindful right now, that's helpful. So waiting can be a clue. Number 11, take a moment to just listen, just feel body sensations, just see. So I find this particularly valuable when I'm taking a walk. And it can just kind of have an open awareness to the colors and the patterns and the sounds and the sky and what's going on. And your attention will jump from one thing to another. I don't think it's really possible to keep your attention on more than one thing at once. But you can shift kind of quick. And just notice all those things. There's another way. Or when you're walking, just pay attention to the movement of your feet. I don't think I put walking. Oh yeah, I just mentioned walking meditation on number 2. Number 12, pause when in a stressful situation. So we've had a couple of handouts that talked about the pause, about just taking a breath or even excusing yourself, trying to understand what's going on rather than to just react habitually. Number 13, notice when you're judging yourself or others, or when you're judging your experiences and sensations. Not that this is wrong. We all judge things, but notice, I'm angry with myself because I didn't do it right, or that person just irritates me, and okay, it irritates me. As long as I notice that's being mindful. That's a jump to another level. Number 14, become more aware of your consumption habits. Okay, so we can perhaps, when we become more mindful, we may notice whether we're eating well or the right amount, what we're drinking and whether it's the right amount. Thinking about our buying habits. Do we do this compulsively? Just take a moment when we're buying. And of course, watching TV. We're doing a lot of that these days, I think, most of us. And just kind of think, oh, is this really worthwhile? And maybe just take a minute to think about what you're watching. Just a few ideas that we can just use as we go on. And I thank Jan for finding this one, because this one from last year I had lost. So I am surprised and gratified that you're so good at keeping track of stuff from last year.
This is a good one, kind of wraps up all of the things we went over. And even as you're reading it over, I'm thinking of my week. Oh, I did that.
Good.
And then not actually having a time where I'm sitting, I do a lot of walking. And a lot of this during that time, you're focusing on your feet, because I am kind of a klutz, so it's kind of a good thing if I'm out walking. Or if I'm on the treadmill even, because if I really start wandering and just, it would be really easy to trip on it. And, or even, instead of going 2 miles to go 3 miles, you kind of get into that pattern, and you're breathing, okay, just I can get through this, I can get through this, I can get through this. And then jumping around too, that I know there's been times when I'm eating, like, oh, I just did a mindful thing. Especially if it's something I really like, it's just like, oh, I'm gonna really make sure I savor every bite, because I don't want to eat 2, I want to eat 1.
Mm-hmm.
And then back to one of the first weeks when you said one thing at a time.
Mm-hmm.
And I so need to do that.
Oh, that, yes.
Yeah, because
When I'm ironing, you iron.
Yeah.
My daughter is good at this, where she's making supper, she's emptying the dishwasher, she's making her lunch for the next day already, and she's whipping up muffins over here. I go over there and I'm a basket case, because she's just doing 4 things at one time. Chill. And she can do it though, I can't
But I
anymore.
think in our society, when you were working, the more you could do that way, the more valuable
Yeah,
you were
she
made to
said,
feel.
yeah, she'll
Where-
say, Mom, I'm a multitasker, I'm not anymore, no.
I don't wanna be able to. I wanna enjoy each thing that I do. I
Right.
think it's maybe where you are in life now,
Mhm.
where you're stepping there. Because when in the work world, you needed to be a multitasker. You
Yeah,
needed
I
to be able to
definitely agree,
and keep all
yes.
that, and you were rewarded for that,
Mhm.
because that, and at this point, it's kind of like, what were they thinking?
And she's used to that type, that doesn't bother her, and then I'll say to her, what did I just say? She'll come right up with what I just said, with all these things around her. She'll say, you just asked me this, she's right,
Mhm.
but she has to in the work, where she works, yeah. I can't do that anymore, it's too much.
Well, I think we could do it if we had to.
Oh,
but we're at a
yeah,
point where we
definitely.
choose, we don't want to
Yeah.
do that anymore.
Mhm.
That's the way I'd rather look at it. I don't think I choose not to do it that way anymore. So let's try it a different way. And I think focusing on one thing at a time, I think you could do a better job in what you're doing or enjoy it, you know?
Mhm.
You're gonna have dirty dishes every day, so Nails will just, enjoy that
Yeah.
moment.
But she's like, she forgot to put the mustard in the deviled eggs. What's deviled eggs without a little mustard in them, you know? But she's got all these 5 things going at one time. And then she'll say, oh, I forgot. So I just want to say, calm down, Manny. Just calm down. You'll get the mustard in there if you calm down. Yeah.
I like your idea, Brenda, of giving yourself credit for your moments of mindfulness. And maybe even taking that list every now and then and said, yeah, I did that, I did that, I did
That's
that.
why I wish I would have journaled, because it seemed like every week when we read something, and I had different things marked in the book, and if I owned the book, I probably would have it highlighted in every different color, because different things just hit you at a different time. So I have to go back to the book. I have to mark them.
Michael, you reference online or virtual classes, and is what you gave us before, the garage,
Yes,
this would be one that you'd recommend,
yeah,
you want to do something?
yeah. Now, the one that I really think is so accessible and valuable is just the brief meditations that's with mindful, what's it called?
Mindfulness meditation podcast,
No, we're at the near the bottom, the app.
Healthy Minds.
Healthy Minds. That's the one that's through the University of Wisconsin, Madison, and you sign up for it. It's free, and you can get every day they have different things. You can pick out different categories, and you can pick out how long you want to do it. 5 minutes or half an hour, a brief teaching or a meditation. That just for that is wonderful. There are also several places that I could email you if you're interested. Um, I mentioned the Insight Meditation Society. They have stuff. That's what I did last week. Um, I forget. There's other ones too. I could send you.
Just send that email to it.
Yes, I will. I still have a lot more. I hope you have a little time yet. This last handout, I'm not going to go through. This is a whole packet, and it was given to me by an instructor, Susan Mickle, I had at a retreat several years ago at the Christine Center, which is out near past Wausau, that way. Beautiful. And it's basically everything we covered in this class put in a very succinct version. I mean, she comes right down to it, okay? So she goes through mindfulness, the posture, breathing, mental noting, we talked about that, mindfulness of body sensations, working with other sensations, feeling tone, mind states, walking meditation, and she has a reading list at the end too. So I felt this was valuable if you want sometime a really succinct instruction about what we're doing. That's it. Now, before we leave today, I do want you to do some writing. So if you have a writing instrument, good. Otherwise, I have 3 pencils over here. And I would like you each to take one 4x6 card. Well, you can take 2 right away, too, because there's 2 different assignments.
We're gonna get graded, I know.
You promised us not.
Fair enough? Okay, good.
Oh, sure.
Do you want to do it?
No,
Rebecca?
thank you. I'm good, thanks.
So the first one is you can keep this for yourself. You don't need to share it with us unless you want to. But I want you to just take a minute to write down some ideas for yourself. 2 thoughts I want you to ask. What is holding you back from doing it regularly every day? And how can I improve? So, like I said, you don't have to share this, but if anybody wants to, okay.
I would, because it was something I came to realize with doing this, uh, was holding back. I can remember going to youth retreats when I was younger through church and books and being told by different leaders of these groups like the meditation and stuff like that was not good. Because you're focusing on yourself and you're not supposed to do that. So it's kind of like, I realized that a couple of weeks ago, but everything, when you put this down, the first thing you put down, past experience, and I gotta let that go, that this is not, I don't know why back then there would have been a religious group thinking that, no, you don't go there, you're not supposed to go there. You're just not supposed to go there. No. And that was the same with any horoscope or any predictive type stuff. Kind of was all lumped together, so. And I can just being at home, and this was as a teenager, and
Not
so-
that long ago.
not that long ago, yeah. So I'm like, but it's like, I really have to let that go, that at that time, that person, I can see the guy talking about this to a large group of people, I think it was even down in Milwaukee, that, and, just, I think even feeling at the time, it was like, why? But, and it was somebody in a group, an organization you're supposed to look up to that supposedly knew more, you didn't really question religion experience back then. But why can't it go hand in hand is what I'm like now. Why would they have thought that that was something that you shouldn't do? But if you're working to improve yourself, you're working really to improve getting along with the world we live in.
I wonder if attitudes about that have been changing over the last
Yeah,
couple of
part of me
decades.
wants to go and see if I got an old box of some of those books because I know we were given books and I'm kind of a pack rat with some of that stuff to see if I can even find some of the old youth stuff of some of those things that I got packed away in a box somewhere. If I do, I'll let you know because I'm really, really curious. And it's not like it's some real off sort of religion. I mean, I was brought up Lutheran, but
Yeah, I think that's a real
Yeah.
factor for us.
Hearing Jan talk about her daughter multitasking, I'm thinking that multitasking doesn't help with meditation. It's kind of like the opposite. So, some days are just too busy. You don't have time. But I think it's really a matter of setting priorities. You can certainly squeeze in, 10, 20 minutes. So it's something you got to do.
that's what I put onto my interior. Take the time. Is to take the time.
Okay, and if you think of other things, add those to your cards and reflect on that. Now I'm just going to ask you, so one of the things I mentioned was it is helpful to get together with a group. Do any of you want to come back next week and do the same thing?
I would.
I don't know if I will be able to.
I'm not
I'd like
asking
to.
for a commitment, I'm only going to come if 2 other people come.
I would do that.
Okay?
I can.
We got 1. Okay, well, let me know, we'll see, okay? Some classes like this I've done in the past, we kept meeting and people found it helpful. And like Jan, I've had people come back and take the class over again, which is great. So maybe I'll do it again in the winter. That's what I did last year in January. So we'll see if you want to do it again. And if there's new people, you can give them your wisdom then. Before we do our closing meditation, take your other card. And on this, I want you to give me some feedback. Tell me about what was helpful, what was less helpful, any suggestions for change in this class. When you're done with your card, bring it back to me, please. So you can send these handouts to Rebecca?
Yep.
Thank you. Lori, if you're watching, I'm going to get in touch with you. I want to talk sometime soon, so you can email me, call me, or I'll be calling you, okay? Thank you.
Did you want us to sign?
Oh, it's optional. I can probably tell.
You can tell me my writing.
Sure about that one.
I get up and wait. Today it's just weird.
Thank you. I really want to thank all of you for coming and being an active part of this group. Here's your virtual hug.
That's the one thing that I can't wait.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, they're finally letting us see Mom again at Willow Park Place. They're
Good.
doing half-hour social distancing, masks, these gowns.
Yeah.
But my mom just cries when I leave because she can't hug me,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And it's just really hard.
Yeah.
So on Monday, I'm gonna see her for the first time in over a month again.
Yeah.
What a horrible time to be an assistant living.
Yeah.
Okay.
My mother-in-law Rose was crying on the phone to me today because she realized I'm not going to be there anymore because I finally completely retired.
You know,
Let's close with a short sit. May the efforts of our practice send little ripples of blessing out into the world.
thank you, Mom.
Thank you, Miss Lincoln.